With more than 100 years of experience, Mitas is one of Europe's leading motorcycle tyre brands. Whether you ride on the trails, enduro, on the road or on adventures, Mitas have the tyres for you. If they're good enough for the likes of Chris Birch and Paul Tarris, they're good enough for me and our Noel. For more information, go to mitas-moto.com. Go the distance with Mitas tyres. Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Hello everybody, welcome back to what is a remarkable episode of the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. It's not often you meet people that seem to be leading an utterly fantastic life, having an awful lot of fun, whilst doing so much for the world and for the community in which they live. Clifton Shipway is one such person. Not only is he enjoying running motorcycle tours in the Himalayas, but is also running a remarkable organisation that looks after kids brought up in poverty in India and gives them a fantastic home and education. So it was an amazing opportunity afforded me by a connection through Mark Wells of Royal Enfield to have this conversation with Clifton. And he's a great guy, as is Mark, who joins us in the conversation. Oh yeah, a couple of things. I'm going to be at ABR. I'm going to be hanging out on the Wilderness Wheel stand, giving out buffs to people that have TAMP podcast t-shirts on, and anybody else that comes along, you're also going to get a free gift as well, just a small token of my appreciation. But you may have to take away leaflets for next year's TAMP podcast Morocco tour and the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival, which is scheduled for the 26th and the 27th of February next year. Right, that's it. Let's get on with it. I've watched quite a bit of your stuff before and recently. I watched the Mad TV.
Actually, that's how I learned about you. Is Dave Darcy's a good mate, and so when he came on, he shared a link, and so that's cool. When I first kind of connected. So that was a while back.
Yeah, it's a couple of years ago.
Back when he was a little tacker on YouTube, and now he's all famous and stuff.
Yeah, he's massive. Nugget, what a hoot.
Yeah, Nugget's a great guy. He's about as fun of a human being as you can possibly get. His heart is just so genuine all the time, and it's so much fun. It makes me laugh every time I ride with him.
He hasn't changed his clothes once since he started making videos with Dave. Still in the same.
Not only has he not changed his clothes are so ratty and like torn up. He genuinely looks like a plumber who's had a bad day. It's just shocking. And he's got the one pair of flip-flops that he straps on the back of his bike, and he travels everywhere with them. What a guy.
Was Nosh one of your friends?
No, he became a friend through Dave. Yeah, he's a great guy too. So really fun human being. I think those guys, as everybody knows who rides, like it can be a bit precarious when you start riding with a new group and you don't know if you're going to mesh or not. And those guys just felt like old riding buddies the minute we got behind them. In fact, before we even got on the bikes, they were so much fun.
Yeah, it can happen, can't it? You get some dickheads that ride right up your chuff. People that ride road bikes like...
I'm not looking at you, Mark.
It's no good looking away.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the most prosaic pedestrian rider you've ever come across.
We haven't done the intros yet, but we've got Clifton Shipway all the way from almost the very northeastern tip of India, virtually in Tibet. And we've got Mark Wells in as well, who's going to help me interview Clifton today. But I was intrigued as to how you guys actually know each other. Is it through the Royal Enfield connection?
Yeah, so Mark and I met, I think, 2019, 6-7 years. And, you know, I tolerate him. He's all right.
We met through, I mean, obviously, Clifton will talk about it a bit more, but Clifton's association with Royal Enfield, one of the things he does is comes down to Motorverse every year, which used to be Ridermania, which is our big brand event that we do down in Goa. We have something like 10,000 riders ride from all over India and turn up, and it's a huge party, massive concert now. You know, it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, it started with a handful of people, and it's grown and grown and grown. I think my first one was 2014, and it's just got bigger and bigger ever since then. And Clifton does a lot of the comparing or emceeing.
Bit of anything, you know. I mean, honestly, Motorverse is kind of my new Christmas. It's so much fun, and it's a gathering of friends from all over the world who come together. The connection of the motorcycle, but also just to have a good time. There's no, I've been to so many other events where there's different brands and you get competitive spirit. That doesn't really happen at Motorverse. The vibe is always positive and it's just addictive. And like my whole year kind of revolves around Motorverse and, when it's coming up next. And I've passed that on to my kids because they're always, they're always ready to go down to Goa and go to Motorverse. They just love it just as much as their old man.
Motorverse it's a Royal Enfield event, is it?
It's a Royal Enfield gathering of motorcyclists and motorcycle enthusiasts. It involves a lot of live music and performances, but there's also competitions and all these amazing food vendors. And there's a dirt track where they have some, sort of like racing events. There's things like, kind of just to entertain people. There's like beer drinking competitions and arm wrestling competitions. And there's carry your bike through a maze and, like all these different, like just kind of crazy things just to make you connect with others. But then also Royal Enfield uses the time to introduce new products, to give people hands-on time with these new bikes that are coming up. But to meet people like Mark and the design team at Royal Enfield and ask them questions and, really just come to more of an understanding of the motorcycle before you go and purchase it. And then they have all the, especially Indian sort of motorcycle world community of third-party vendors who come in with their luggage options and their riding gear and everything under the sun. And so you have this just gigantic festival of people who are in love with motorcycles and riding across all spectrums, from flat track, which is also there at Motorverse, through to, crazy adventure riders, guys who've ridden motorcycles in Antarctica. And so you get to meet and chat with them, and you kind of run out of hours in the day to see everything because there's just so much going on over the three-day festival. And I highly recommend to anyone who's interested in just connecting with motorcycle communities outside of their own. It's a blast, man. It's an absolute blast. It's so much fun.
You had me at beer.
Oh, yeah. And there's crazy cheap beer. 1 pound is like 100 rupees and beers are normally about a pound.
It's a bit like the ABR festival, but with less grey hair. The average age is probably, 25 to 35. And because of that, the music acts that we put on are really high energy. The atmosphere is so buzzing when you're there. It's fantastic.
Well, it's a lot of Indian artists. So the music scene mostly happens in the evenings. Last year, we had some really top tier Indian artists in, but also like Diplo, who's an amazing DJ. And it's pretty normal to have some pretty decent international artists coming. And it's just nuts. The lights show, the fireworks and everything that goes on. I mean, it's as good as Coachella and all these other events as far as production quality. There might not be as many people, but you do. Like Mark said, you get 10,000 guys riding their bikes in and another 6,000 flying in. And at the end of the day, you get between 12 to 18,000 people who turn up for 3, 4, 5 days. The whole event is 3 days. But Mark and I, one year, we ended up taking our families down south and having a little holiday. It's a great chance to get out with the family and do something that we love, but make them think it's about them. I don't know, it's a great little scam that we've got going.
Well, and going back to Dave, I rode in with Dave. I flew into Chennai and Dave flew into Chennai, and then we rode across southern India. And that's also the other thing with Motorverse is it's this sort of coming together of riders because they come from all over India and people ride from Delhi. They ride, a good couple of thousand miles to get to it. Although the event is 3 days, for lots of people, it's, a week and a half, so you spend 2 or 3 or 5 days getting there. And then when you get there, it's just like, wow, we're here. So then it's a huge drink up and it's a fantastic thing.
One of the nice things that I think is often overlooked is when guys fly in from not just India, but around the world, because there are hundreds of international visitors who come there. Goa is a beautiful beachy sort of palm trees and white sands sort of side of India. But the people who fly in can rent motorcycles for a couple of bucks a day. Even if you're not a motorcycle rider, you can certainly feel like you fit in there. Everybody's welcome, and it's just a blast. It's honestly, like I said, it's my new Christmas, and my whole year revolves around it. It's just so much fun.
And do you present in English, or you've completely lost your Australian accent, obviously? So do you actually present in your native tongue or your new native tongue?
I often get accused of being South African, and so I've been in India for 23 years now, and I speak Hindi fluently. I'm a one-trick pony in that regard where, I'll get out there and be speaking in English, and everyone who knows me is just waiting for the moment where I'm going to bust out the Hindi and surprise all of those who don't know me. As soon as the Hindi comes out, I can genuinely say my accent, I worked really hard to not sound like a white guy speaking Hindi. When I talk to people on the phone, they have no clue that I'm actually white, until they meet me face to face. And it's often a very comical, confusing moment for them. It can be a lot of fun where they're unsure who they were talking to on the phone because it definitely wasn't the guy who's in front of them.
It seems to be that English is now the accepted language in large parts of India. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think a big part of that is because the country is so diverse and there are so many languages here that English is kind of a mutual ground. Especially in the Royal Enfield community, you want to be able to connect with everyone. And so I think English is generally the chosen medium. But it does, especially a couple of beers deep, you do tend to switch to different languages, sometimes languages no one's heard before.
I was being ironic, though. You've still got a really strong Australian.
Oh, really?
accent.
I genuinely don't know. And like truly, when I speak with white people, I sound more Australian than when I speak at home with my kids or with my wife and those around me.
When is Motorverse? What time of year is it?
November.
Is it really hot in November in Goa? Or?
Yeah.
It would be hot for someone from the UK, but for India, it's kind of normal. But it's just the perfect weather.
That year we were there, it was 35 and really humid. The year that that I was there with the family. 2 weeks ago, I was in southern India. I was coming down from Collie Hills, and it was 46 degrees, and that is properly hot. And we hit Collie Hills at about 10, so it hadn't got to the full temperature of the day. And obviously, as you go up the altitude, the temperature drops. So then we did all the hairpins and the 74. It's such a brilliant bit of road, that. So we spent about 3 hours riding that bit. And then as we dropped down the other side and came out of the mountain, I don't know whether there was like a heat trap as well, with the mountains reflecting. But as we came down the mountain, we're coming down these hairpin bends. And it was literally like within about a mile and a half, like somebody had taken a hot hairdryer and was blowing it in your face. And you almost couldn't breathe. It seemed to dissipate a little bit once we got back onto the flat plain. It wasn't quite as hot, but it was like having hot air blown at you. And it was so hot. Normally in India, it's always hot. But when you stop, you sweat. And then when you get moving again, if you've got a mesh jacket on, you feel the chill, you feel the breeze, and it takes some of the temperature away. Whereas at that point, I think the ambient was hotter than my core temperature. And so therefore it was just warming. It was so hot.
Clive, I wouldn't dare tell you how to do your job, but appropriate question to ask Mark might be what bike he was riding there in the hills.
At that moment that I'm describing, I believe I was on a current Himalayan 450.
Oh, and the rest of the time?
We had a bear with us, with a SRAM. We had...
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah. Mark does an amazing job with Royal Enfield's motorcycles, and I can't wait for the next generation. Super excited to see what's coming next.
I mean, there's always something coming next. We're constantly flat out with projects. There's always something coming next, and we're always testing and trying stuff. I mean, I've been very fortunate over the last few weeks. I've not seen my family much, but I did a week in Brazil, and I rode from Rio to Sao Paulo. And then I did...
Oh, sorry, the line's going funny. Oh, fuck off.
And then we did a week in Spain, just south of Barcelona, in the hills there, riding a few bikes. And then, and then a week in India.
My name's Clifton Shipway. I'm, a motorcycle enthusiast, adventure rider. I've been living in India for the past 23 years. I run a children's home. I'm the director of an NGO called the Good Shepherd Agricultural Mission. And kind of our main sort of project is trying to uplift and support people who are maybe struggling especially due to their socioeconomic backgrounds. One of our primary works is a children's home and also a school where we have about 650 kids. But to support myself and my family, I ride. It's the dream. I get to ride and be paid to ride, mostly producing content for Royal Enfield, which has a huge presence here in India, but also running motorcycle tours through India, Nepal, Tibet. And every now and again, I get to go abroad to the US, to Australia, and other fun places like that to ride. It's kind of a bit of a dream to get to do this. I recognise that I'm damn lucky.
The story about how you came to be living in India and the story of the Good Shepherd Agricultural Mission. I mean, obviously, that's a name from the past, isn't it, really? A bit like the Trail Riders Fellowship, which was probably started around the same time. It was your grandfather that started the mission, wasn't it?
Yeah, so basically my granddad was from the US. He got a job in India before India, when you guys ran the show here. Back in 1942, when the British were still running India, My grandfather got a job teaching as a professor of agricultural engineering. And so he came out here with his wife, my grandmother. They lived in the middle of nowhere teaching this subject for the first time. It was being taught in India. And then India got its independence. And there was this huge push to remove the British people from India. But that left a bit of a vacuum as India was really taking control of the systems and learning. It had been many years since India had been able to lead itself. And so over that period, the Brits were really chased out. But my grandfather, being American, because America had also got its independence from England a few years before, he was given a section of land in northeast India, where I am now, by the newly established Indian government to look after Anglo-Indian kids, basically the bastard kids of British soldiers generally, but also British sort of expats who left kids behind. Those kids were brought out into the middle of the jungle with my grandfather, and like quite literally in the middle of the jungle. And he started the crazy project that I now get to run. It was such an incredible adventure where he went back to the US to to collect some funding, and came out, kind of at the back end of World War II in 1948, and landed in Bombay on the docks in a ship. And he brought out a tractor in pieces and a couple of trailers and a thrashing machine. And he made his own little road train and drove this tractor, kerosene-powered tractor, about 3,000 kilometres across India to reach the middle of nowhere in the jungle, where he pitched a tent under a massive mango tree and really staked his claim for the land that he'd been given. And I still live under that mango tree, not in the tent, but in a proper house.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Today's exciting episode is brought to you by Adventure Specs Super Shirt 2.0. 2.0? Yep, it's a new version. It's got the flow armour, which is a lot more breathable, and yet it's still CE AA rated. So it gives you both impact protection and abrasion resistance.
It's an absolute game changer.
It is actually, because you completely forget you've got it on. The armour's really soft. I even find myself checking to see if I've actually remembered to put it on sometimes.
It still feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it's the first thing I put on for all motorcycling activities, basically. I even wore it and you mocked me when we were doing some trials practice.
Thank God you were wearing it that day, because I don't think you'd be with us today if you hadn't been wearing it when you got on the trials bike.
It wasn't that bad. It's even been crash tested on an actual human, which I don't think any other garment has ever been tested that way.
They threw a man down a runway wearing one, didn't they?
It's actually quite scary to watch, but he came away unscathed, which is pretty good news.
What do you wear over the top of yours?
Well, I'm a bit of a hipster, so it's usually a check shirt and a very long beard.
Just something to hide the coffee stains?
Yes, the very rare blend espressos that I normally drink.
Nice.
So there are sizes for all, from small to, I think, triple XL. It's quite stretchy as well, so it'll fit women, and it fits fatties like me too. To get your super shirt, head to adventurespec.com.
I'm Austin Vince, and in 1995, me and some buddies set out to motorcycle around the world on a trip we called Mondo Enduro. We thought it would be terribly difficult, but it turned out it wasn't. Ultimately, we were the first group to trail ride across Siberia's Zilov Gap, and then also the first crew to ride the Road of Bones to Magadan. And we did it on second-hand 350cc trail bikes without the internet, mobile phones, or GPS. Motorcycling around the world was the defining experience of my life, and I knew I wanted to share that fun. So now I teach the DIY lo-fi Mondo ethos by taking people on miniature expeditions in the Spanish Pyrenees. If you think that sounds like fun, you'd be right. So come on.
You can find lots more information at austinvince.com. One of the things that I read that amazed me was that it was like a jungle, a rainforest. He had to drain a lot of the land before he could actually turn it into arable land.
Yeah, so one of the problems with this area is that it was all swamp. There was a massive problem with malaria here. There was a type of malaria that they colloquially here called cerebral malaria. It had a very high death rate. One of my grandfather's sons, my uncle, he passed away due to the cerebral malaria when he was very young. And so my grandfather, using his agricultural engineering skills, put in drainage and drained away the land so that there was less mosquitoes breeding and it became much more habitable. When he first came out here, he quite literally was on his own. The nearest help for anything was about 4 hours away, and he had to battle elephants and tigers and massive snakes and quite literally, hunt for food. So they would go out and shoot whatever came across their path. And they had this incredible journey that led to what I've got now, where we've got, I'm sitting in an air-conditioned office that's solar-powered, and I've got probably 50 computers within 50 feet of me. And so, to go from pitching a tent in the middle of nowhere 4 hours away from help to spoil me, it's an insane journey.
Must have been an incredible character. Did you ever get to know him when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a pretty long distance relationship with him, but came out a few times. I mean, he knew me when I was very young. But when I was 10, I came out and spent a good stint here with my parents and really got to know my grandfather more. And when I returned back to Australia, I wrote my grandfather a letter, and I didn't have any recollection of this letter, but I was 10 years old, sent in the letter from Australia, and I found it, when I moved here in 2004, when we were going through the office. And the letter said, "Don't worry, Grandpa, I'll come out and I'll help you. I'll start a computer lab and teach the kids computers, and we'll use that to improve their lives." And here I am, 23 years later, and we're into our second computer lab.
That's amazing. You obviously take after him a little bit as well, I would guess.
I would say I take after my dad and my mum, who both drew their own inspiration from people like him and from him too. So I credit my sort of hopes and dreams and character to my parents, but credit their character to my grandfather.
Did you say that he set a road train up and he drove a tractor from Mumbai to where you are now?
Yes, sir.
That is a massive journey, Clive. That is a long, long distance. If you look at it on a map, look Lucknow is, and look up from there. That's going across the entire subcontinent of India, effectively, in a tractor.
That's right. And Mark, in those days, there was no sealed roads. Yeah. And so it was a tractor with a double axle trailer, with another double axle trailer, with a thrashing machine. And all the trailers and thrashing machine were full of stuff to start the organization. And so he had this incredible journey. And as he was traveling across India, he had to barter things like US watches or pens or even writing books like pads and paper. He had to barter them for kerosene to power the tractor. And so we've actually set up that tractor in the middle of our organization as a little testimony to that journey.
You've still got it?
Yeah, beautiful old tractor. It's set up like doesn't run anymore, but it's sitting there right at our entrance for everyone to see. And we've put in a beautiful little plaque kind of telling the story. So, but what a crazy adventure. I mean, no matter what we do on the motorcycle for the rest of our lives, we can't match that.
No, that is a complete voyage into the unknown, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it was over 2 weeks' journey, just driving every day on a metal tractor seat. I mean, if you saw this seat, it is not comfortable. It's like sitting on a hubcap.
You ended up going back to Australia when you were fairly little, I guess. And then, as you say, you moved back in 2004 after, I guess, growing up until you were 19 in Australia. So for you to then be moved back to India must have been a hell of a move for a 19-year-old.
You'd think that. It felt like the next natural progression. I think in my mind, growing up, India had always held this mystical, wonderful sort of imagery. And so it was something that I really wanted to do. But the reason why I came out was because my grandfather had done all this work to establish this place. And then upon his death, there was some really sort of just unscrupulous parties who got involved, who were trying to take over the organisation and chop it up and sell it off for their own financial gain. And there was a lot of mistreatment of the kids, and it just didn't sit well with me or my parents that anyone would destroy that legacy. And so Within 7 days, we were on a plane coming back, sold off everything in Australia. I went back a few months later to sell off the house, but, we essentially just moved out here knowing we were moving out forever.
You went back to sell the house?
Yeah, well, we needed money.
But you were 19.
Probably 19 or 20. Got power of attorney from my parents, and it was very weird because I went from having next to no money in my bank account to having all the money. And it was a very strange feeling to go to the ATM and see all those zeros.
I'm really keen to understand a little bit more about your motorcycling history. Did you start in Australia or in India?
I used to go to church in Australia, and I had a couple of mates there who, just out of the blue, one day, one of them's dad said to me, "Hey, Clifton, we've got this old motorbike. Do you want it?" And I think I was 13 at the time. Of course, immediately said yes. Hadn't ever had a motorbike. I mean, my dad had an old Polaris, like 4-wheel motorbike, just for going around the farm. But turned up to pick up this motorbike, and it was a Suzuki ER 185, TS 185. And the whole thing was so completely rotten with rust. The bottom of the tank, you could see right through the bottom of the tank from the top of the tank. Sunlight would go right through. There was no way it was holding fuel. And we loaded it up and took it back to my place, and it took my dad about 5 hours to fix it and get it running. He welded up a new tank. I mean, it looked like something out of Mad Max, but it rode like something out of Mad Max. It was so friggin' fun. My dad encouraged me a lot in the early days with my riding and fixed the bike every time I broke it, and I broke it a lot. He'd set up little ramps to jump over fences so I didn't have to leave the gate open when I'd burn through. And we'd have all the cows in the paddocks, and I'd just be popping wheelies and doing burnouts and jumping the fences and going from one. You had to figure out which fence had a jump next to it so that you could get back home. And so I'd have a little route to get me through to the house without having to get off the bike. But then I moved out to India, and it all stopped. I just stopped riding. I was so heavily focused on the project here, on trying to rectify the wrongs and to help people. And I got so incredibly engrossed in it all that I forgot that I had this passion. ER105, I used to ride it through the forestry roads to get to work when I was 16, fully illegally ride it around off-road, not get caught by the cops if I could avoid it. And came out to India and, didn't think of it. And then suddenly one day, I think I saw a billboard for this motorcycle that's made by a company called Bajaj here. Sorry, Mark. But they had this bike called a Platina. And it sounds exactly how it was. It's the most trash 125cc pocket motorcycle that you can imagine. I mean, the whole thing was plastic and it was just terrible. And I was going to buy one. And then my brother-in-law stopped me and he said, "You're a fool if you're going to buy that. You got to get a Royal Enfield." And so I didn't. I bought a Pulsar, which was a stunt with quotation marks motorcycle. This Pulsar was a 220cc, really plastic body, terrible. I immediately regretted it because then my brother-in-law let me ride an old Electra, which is one of the Royal Enfield motorcycles, and it felt so much more real. I had the Pulsar for a bit, and then Royal Enfield launched the Himalayan. I was taking the Electra in to get serviced. I think it was just for like some oil filter or something. And I saw the ad on a wall in the Royal Enfield showroom for the Himalayan, and I thought, geez, that's the bike for me. And honestly, I have not looked at another bike since. I think I've gone through 15 Himalayans since 2018.
450 or the 411?
The 411s and a couple of 450s, but I've mostly gone through 15 just simply because as part of the methodology of my riding company, I buy bikes and sell them a lot. Part of what I aim to do with the rides is I started the company again with my brother-in-law, Eugene. The idea is that we have people come in, clients from abroad. We take them on an amazing motorcycle adventure with brand new motorcycles.
Let's talk a little bit about where you live, because you actually live in a place called Bambasa, which is right at the northeastern edge of India, and you're right on the border with Nepal, right?
If I pick up a rock and throw it and then pick it up again and throw it again, I'll hit Nepal. Like, it's only a couple of K down the road. It's a great place to launch tours.
You're basically in the foothills of the Himalayas up there.
I'm kind of in this beautiful sweet spot where I'm in the plains, I'm on a highway, Nepal is 5 minutes away, and the Himalayas are 10. and the jungle is over my back fence. It's a pretty amazing spot to be a motorcycle rider, especially an ATV rider.
It does sound like your granddad just kind of got on his tractor and thought, I'll find somewhere to live that'll be ideal for motorcycling.
Oh, 100%.
At some point in the future.
He knew what was coming.
How old were you when you got the Electra? That must be, what, 2000 and...
Oh, no, it wasn't new. It was old. Yeah, an old Electra, secondhand. But that would have been 2009, 10, something like that.
You could be considered a born-again biker.
Oh, mate, I mean, yes, for sure. Gone from Suzuki to Bajaj. Oh, I threw up a little in my mouth as I said that. Royal Enfield.
And you've stuck with Royal Enfield ever since, obviously.
Not at all because Mark's here, but genuinely, like the Himalayan is such a fun bike. With other bikes that I've ridden, like I've had a really good ride on the Tenere. I've done a fair bit with KTM bikes as well. But the one thing that I can't get over with the Himalayan is just how cheap it is to fix. Because it's cheap to fix, just like my old Suzuki, I can crash it all day long. I can push it. I can do things that I normally wouldn't attempt because I'd probably be scared that it's going to cost me a bomb to fix. And you break a mirror, it costs you $4. You flood the engine and you have to have a complete rebuild and it costs you like $25. It's unbelievably cheap. And then you add to it like the 411, I used to describe it, no negativity, it was a tractor where you could not get that thing stuck. It had so much torque, I could bury it right up, in thick, hard mud, all the way up to like the bottom of the tank and still ride it out, with maybe a little push, but get it out all by yourself. And when you have that flexibility, not to mention the fact that it, literally take the thing underwater, pull it out, let it dry in the sun and then start it again. When you have that flexibility, it gives you more freedom to ride. And I'm not some crazy rider. I don't jump fences anymore. I'm 40-something years old, but I still like to ride alone a bit. And so having a bike that I can rely on is very important to me. And the Himalayan has not let me down, not once.
That's what I always think of him as like a faithful dog.
100%.
It's that tractability, that comes from that heavy crank inertia. It just keeps chugging on. I don't know whether you saw Lau Pavey put a video up this week. I think he's in
Greece.
Yes, it's Greece. And he's going up that hill and he just keeps going and keeps going. And you don't get that unless you've got that big single. Unless you've got that big single that's just chug, 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 and it's just firing away. And that's the 450 as well.
I mean, the 450 is the same thing, only somehow it feels like older brother to the 411. And it's just, I love it. It's got so much character, that bike. And, I've taken it to Mount Everest and back, and quite literally, both of them hold a very special place in my heart. It'll be easy for me to switch as long as it's another Himalayan muck.
Well, that's good to hear.
You don't keep hold of the bikes that you use for the tours then? You buy them in and sell them off pretty quickly and run new ones every time?
That's part of what I'm going for with the tours is people come in from abroad, they have an amazing tour. It's all included. I go to every length that I can, right down to sometimes even finding out the brand of cigarettes that they smoke and making sure they've got them. And then at the end of the tour, we try to do a handing over the keys ceremony where the bike is sold to someone who needs a bike, someone who's maybe wouldn't be able to afford, or not maybe, would definitely not be able to afford a new Himalayan. We sell them the bike at, say, 60% of the new price. It's only got between 2,000 and 3,000 miles on the odometer maximum. And then the money that they give goes to the organisation that I run. And so everybody wins because the guy who goes on the ride gets this incredible ride through the Himalayas, whether it's in India, Tibet, Nepal. But then they also get the joy and satisfaction of supporting children in need and then also supporting riders in need. It's this crazy, everybody walks away feeling positive type vibe, and the Himalayan on road is pretty cheap. Here in India, it sits roughly £2,500. You look at the price of that bike, you add another maybe $1,500 for the accommodation, the food, the fuel, medical backup, the luggage truck that carries the bags so you can be an old man and just strap on a little day bag to the back of your bike, and and a photographer team who comes along and takes photos and videos so that you don't even have to worry about that. The whole tour ends up costing £4,000 to £5,000, and you get to do some amazing good in the world as well as, but also get on a bike.
And it does look utterly amazing round there. As I said, I watched the Ride to Rara.
Great video. Ride to Rara Lake with Motorcycle Adventure Dirt TV.
Yeah, Mad TV, Dave Darcy and Nugget.
Yeah, that's a beautiful route through there. So that's Nepal's largest inland lake, extremely unexplored by motorcyclists the way that we went, to the point that we had villagers coming up and just looking at our bikes with their jaws on the ground. They'd never seen anything bigger than, 125cc little motorbike, and they're seeing these massive, massive for them, 450s. Amazing off-roading, just absolutely stunning. And then Rara Lake is the biggest payoff of all because it's this stunning lake in the middle of nowhere. It feels like something from a couple of 100 years ago. It's completely untouched. So it's a pretty incredible journey.
Your website, which we've agreed is out of date.
Oh, have you been looking at the DTour website?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I didn't even know that was still up. Yeah, no, I stopped running the website. No need anymore. It's just word of mouth that I run the tours through. The main places that I love to go is through Uttarakhand in India if time is limited. Uttarakhand is the state that I live in. It's in the Himalayas. It's a little more forgiving riding, mostly tarmac, but you can sort of sprinkle in some light to medium off-roading. But then Nepal is stunning. So you've got Rara Lake, you've got Mustang. Mustang is, until about 1992, it was a completely blocked off area of Nepal where foreigners weren't allowed to go. And now you go there and it's like riding through Mars. It's just incredible. In 2024, I opened up a route through Tibet into Lhasa, and that goes past Mount Everest Base Camp in Tibet. So you get to ride to Mount Everest Base Camp, see Mount Everest, and really kind of experience the highest altitude riding you can do in the world in the Tibetan Plateau, and it's stunning. It's a longer tour, but it's just absolutely amazing.
What altitude are you at?
You average somewhere around 16 to 18,000 feet. You end up pretty high, but there's points where you go a little higher than that. The biggest battle of that ride is the altitude and altitude sickness, just the headaches and stuff. The first trip I did to Everest, because I've done a couple, the first trip I did was actually with Royal Enfield. One of my good mates who was on that ride coined a statement where he said, we're literally riding our motorcycles at a higher altitude than people jump out of planes. Which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it.
I've never been on that side, but I've been up to Garden Douglas and done some of those and some of the higher passes there. And we stayed over one night in Tussauds Lake, I think it is, at the camp there. And some of the guys, I was lucky. It didn't really affect me. I had a slight nagging headache, but some of the guys were really, really badly affected by the altitude sickness. It's serious as well. You have to be aware of it, don't you?
Kardung La's 17.5, I think, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It's insanely high. I mean, it's almost 5,400 metres.
It's when you go trekking off somewhere, right? Where we camped at Tussauds Lake, there was this amazing landscape with these little grassy tussocks and pools of water. And I thought, I'll go and have a wander out into the middle of that and take some photos. And I wandered out and I was out of breath when I stopped. And I sat there and I watched the sun disappear behind the mountain. And it was like somebody turning the heater off. Atmosphere is so thin up there. There's no, residual heat in the air. And then I turned around and walked back. And by the time I got back, I was like, I've overdone this. I'm properly dizzy at this point. If you weren't clever with it, you could get into trouble up there.
That's your own fault. I've said this before. You're on a motorbike trip. Why the fuck are you walking anywhere? Pack it in.
It's when you do those rides and the sights you see, the things you see. To me, it's so special that a bike can take you to those places. You think if it wasn't for a bike, I would never be able to see these. To me, that's just magic. That's just amazing. As I say, I've not done Nepal or Tibet, and I'm desperate to go there. But the stuff I've done around Leh and around sort of up in the Himalayas on that side, it's just a landscape like no other.
I've done four-wheel drive tours and stuff through the mountains, but everybody who rides understands that when you're on the bike, there's no windshield between you and the rest of the world. You take it all in, every sound, every sight, every smell, and you feel so much more, or at least I feel so much more connected to where I'm riding. It was Royal Enfield that got me into touring.
Can I stop you there before you carry on the story? Now, Himalayas, Himalayan. So you speak the language of somebody that lives very near the Himis.
Well done.
How do locals pronounce it?
Himalaya.
Himalaya.
You can say Himalaya, though, because even over here, they'll say one or the other. It's interchangeable. If somebody says Himalayan, it does sound like they're not from India. It's very well accepted. Like Himalayan would be the way that everybody would say it here. But Mark designed the bike, so it should be up to him.
I'm not sure he built the mountains.
Exactly, and I get told off quite a lot for getting it wrong.
Surely it comes down to the creator. So, Mark, you may not have created the mountains, but you created a bike. You can call it what you want.
The bit I love is that it's got that little name. It's got that little nickname that everybody calls it a Hemi now, and I love that. You know, a bit like, I don't know, Jigsaw, or when a product gets a name like that, you know it's landed in the psyche. You know that people love it and care for it, and, you know, almost to say, see it like that little dog, that little faithful hound that's going to be with you. And I love that about it. I think that's it's a real endorsement of it.
I was kind of sharing that I hadn't really thought about motorcycle riding when I was living in India too much. And one of the things that I really struggled with here was my mental health. Moving away from all my friends, I had a pretty big social network in Australia. And while they did an amazing job of supporting me and sending out DVDs and video messages and stuff, because, you know, there was no internet out here in the middle of the jungle in those early days. And so stuff would come in the mail. But I missed out on any kind of social network and any real connects. And because I was a part of the leadership of the organisation, the kids here might have been similar ages to me. They were still sort of subordinates. I had this place of leadership. You can't piss fart around. You have to, you know, be on your best behaviour and stuff. And so when I got the Himalayan, there was a poster for a tour that Royal Enfield was running as part of their Rides and Community branch, which we should talk about later, just how incredible a job Royal Enfield does with that. They were running a tour through my own state, and it was like £300 for an 18-day tour. So I took my bike and went on this tour and met people who I just meshed with, and they still remain my best friends. 8 years later? And through countless Royal Enfield tours that I've done with Royal Enfield, the actual company, my mental health has skyrocketed. I have friends in every city. I can go anywhere in India and run into trouble, and there will be a dozen people who've got my back. That's one of the things that I think I often overlook with motorcycling, is just how, yes, it's beautiful to go from A to B. It's beautiful to go from C to D, but it's also beautiful to build relationships with the people that you travel with and build lifelong mates who, you know, ring you up and give you hell. You know, when they see you post I'm clean shaven for the first time in months, put a photo up on social media without really thinking it through. And I got like 6 calls from people just giving me a hard time over looking like a child. That's what we need in life, right? And I was stuck here in the middle of nowhere without that banter and without that friendship. And now I've got buddies who I've ridden on 15 rides with through tens of thousands of kilometres, just simply because I saw a poster on a wall in a motorcycle showroom.
What I love about that is, and that's exactly what I love about bikes, full stop, is that, you know, everywhere you go, anywhere in the world, you meet people, and that shared, and I'm not saying that everybody that rides a motorcycle is a great person or a nice person, but there does seem to be
a higher ratio.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a mentality that comes with it. And I don't know whether that's, you know, a slight risk aversion and, you know, getting out and doing something and wanting to explore and see the world, and whether that kind of links us all together. But wherever you go in the world, you get to meet great people. And actually, that's nothing to do with Royal Enfield. That's just motorcycles in general. You know, it doesn't matter what you're riding. It's just bikes, and it's just wicked that wherever you go. I mean, as I say, I just came back from Brazil, and I met some guys I'd never met before, and we did an 8-hour ride from Rio to Sao Paulo, and by the end of it, we were, you know, best mates, and I love that about.
I think there's also, you know, you're a bit vulnerable when you're on a motorcycle too, and so when you're vulnerable, you seek out community for protection, and I think that's just kind of a natural thing of human beings, is that we are made to connect and to commune with each other. And often day-to-day life and business just severs that connection and severs us from community. And I guess kind of linking it back to my organisation, here we live in community, and it's the best living that I could ever imagine. I never want to go and live in a city where if I want to go and visit a friend, I have to call to find out if they're home, or, you know, if it's even okay for me to come and visit. You want to have a community of people around you, surrounding you, who are a part of your day-to-day life, and not just someone who you have to take permission from and book an appointment to go and have a beer with.
You're running the Good Shepherd Agricultural Mission, which is effectively an orphanage, isn't it, is what we're talking about? Or is it something different to that?
It was an orphanage previously, and all our orphans grew out of the system. And now all of our kids are just from low socioeconomic backgrounds. India has some pretty strict rules about orphanages, and we didn't want to come under, essentially, we didn't want to come under extremely limiting and oppressive rules that orphanages have to live by. A big part of our organisation is we live as a family, and we really do live as a family. If we wanted to run an orphanage, we'd have to hand over control to the Indian government of which kids we take in and which kids get adopted out and things like that. And so that could just immediately destroy our family atmosphere. I mean, imagine having a kid for 15 years and then you get a phone call that kid's being adopted out. Or imagine you've had kids for 15 years and everything's fine, and then somebody comes along and says, hey, you've got to take this boy in. And by the way, he raped 3 girls in the last children's home he was in. You can't say no. And there's all these strict rules about dietary requirements and how many grams of lentils you have to give the kids. My kids eat pizza and lasagna. They eat mulberry pies and pumpkin pies, and we bake our own bread. And so if I all of a sudden have to start following these rigid sort of rules, it just will destroy the place. And so we had to kind of step back a bit from the orphanage side of things. And we still look after kids more in, like, I guess, a boarding school type thing, but it's free and it's for kids who are in need. But then the real big project that I'm focused on now is our school, where we provide really top tier education to everybody from our local community with the mindset of just giving them a shot at a life where they can really stand on their own feet and not kind of be locked down because their parents were locked down and their grandparents were locked down, through poverty and a lack of facility or availability of education.
You also seem to employ quite a few of the kids that have been through your system as well. So the guys that work on the tours, the kids or the adults work in the school and all that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty cool story.
In the children's home, everyone except me and our carpenter, we have a full-time carpenter. Everybody else was a child of our organisation, which means they have this unique perspective of what the kids going through the gates can benefit from. I guess I didn't really make it clear. So we have a 75-acre campus in Banbassa where we have a big farm that we grow our own produce. We're very self-supporting. We do kind of look to donations and stuff, especially if we're trying to build a building or whatever. But we've got fish ponds and poultry unit and orchards full of mangoes and lychees, and we grow cherries and all these different things. And we're kind of this little self-contained ecosystem in many ways. We have a dairy with about 50 cows. The cows' manure is picked up every morning and shoveled into a digester tank where it creates biogas that we then cook our bread with. The bread is made from wheat from our fields. The off product from the biogas goes back into the fields as fertilizer and grows more wheat for us to turn into bread. So it's this pretty cool sort of cycle that happens. None of which I can claim any credit for. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants. Those are systems that my parents and my grandfathers set up, and I just kind of run with the game plan that they set up.
Just listening and hearing more about it from you, it's just fucking amazing. So, and I'm kind of thinking, if you are going to go on a tour to India, give Clifton a shout. Why would you not go and, rather than some fat cat making a load of profit, give it to the...
I'll charge a little more. I won't lie. It probably costs you £1,000 more to go with me. But one of the things that I've done in the past is drop the price significantly, but just had people give a donation directly to our organisation. So then it's tax deductible for them too. So you can almost go on a tax deductible motorcycle ride. Anyone who's interested can just search my name on Instagram and you'll find me. It's just Clifton Shipway. And
your details are still on the website, even though it's out of date.
When you said the website was outdated, I thought you meant my organisation's website. I honestly forgot that I had a website for my motorcycle company. It's not needed. It's all about word of mouth, and people come on a tour, they absolutely love it and they share it with their mates, and their mates connect with me, and that's the way that I roll. And I'm not looking to do 15 tours a year. I'm just looking at 2 or 3 a year max, because I want to be home and looking after my kids and doing the other stuff that I do. So, I don't know how it happened, but living close proximity to the jungle, there's always snakes around. And somehow I found myself being a snake catcher. And it's not something I learned, it just, maybe it's the Australian in me. And, I tend to get about 30 to 50 venomous snakes a year that we end up catching. And the most fun ones are the big pythons. Like, we caught a 21-foot python. And when you're catching a 21-foot python, you're not sure if you're catching the python or the python is catching you 99% of the time. Oh, yeah. It's literally 10 inches thick. And they end up weighing, so the big one that we caught was 140 kilograms.
So how did you know it had fed recently?
Well, are they ever safe? No, I mean, pythons, the worst they're going to do, really, there's always other people around, right, if something goes awry. Pythons, the worst you're going to get generally is a pretty nasty bite, and it's going to heal, and you'll have a great battle scar, right? The scary one is the venomous snakes. There's one called a crate or a crate. It will come after you. I catch a lot of cobras. They're lovely. They're beautiful snakes as far as their nature goes. They don't want to hurt you. They just want to be left alone. And so if there's one in someone's house, I tend to go in and collect it. And so I let all the snakes go in the jungle. And I generally get a call from the forestry department who call me to come and catch the snakes because they're scared to get them. And then somehow a couple of years ago, it turned from snakes. Somebody decided I could catch crocodiles. And so they started calling me for them too. I had no frigging clue how to catch a crocodile.
I mean, where would that idea come from?
Right, it's the Australian. So now I've caught a bunch of crocs, and I had a call, must have been 6 months ago, from the forestry department, and they asked me if I was free, and I was actually out with some friends, and I said, I might be able to make it to catch a croc. And I normally catch like 5 or 6 foot crocs. That's the biggest. And another friend called me and he said, whatever you do, don't go for the croc. It's 13 feet long. And I was like, yeah. I called back the forestry department. I was like, oh, sorry, guys, I can't make it. I'm actually really swamped here. There's no way I'm catching a 13-foot croc. That will be the end of me.
Clifton, when you tell the story of going out from Australia to India, I don't think I've ever asked you this, but India is a wonderful, beautiful country, but it's also mad and crazy, and it's a very different culture to Australia, I guess. I don't know. I've only been to Australia once, so I actually don't know. But certainly to the UK, it's taken me a while to learn some of that and adjust to some of that. And I only visit periodically. I mean, I'm over there quite a lot, but I don't live there. As a 19-year-old, what was that like when you first got there? And especially where you were, which was so remote. It's not like you're in Delhi or Mumbai or Chennai where they're big bustling metropolises. Going into the middle of the jungle, as you say, what was that like as a 19-year-old? You talked about your mental health, but that must have been such a culture shock in some ways.
Yeah, it definitely was hard to move out to India. The hardest part of it all was probably the language. I had some preconceptions that were accurate of what India was like from, visiting while I was younger. Other than language, the real one that I struggled with, that I still struggle with, if I'm honest, is one of the beautiful things about Indian culture is the respect for elders. There's this incredible, deeply cultural respect for anyone who's 10, 15 years older than you or more. And so what I really struggled with was I brought in my Australian mindset where I thought I knew how life should be. If I saw anyone who I thought was doing the wrong thing, and even if they were genuinely doing the wrong thing, I would often speak to them by Indian culture disrespectfully. And so learning to navigate the intricacies of respect, cultural respect, is an ongoing journey for me, something that I'm getting better and better at. I'll give you an example of it because it's very hard to explain it. I'll be sitting at home. Some dude will turn up to my door, let's say a 60-year-old man. He's completely wasted and he's asking me for money because I'm a white guy. Just absolutely can barely stand up drunk. In the early days, I'll be honest, I was so frazzled by it all and so frustrated with it all. I'd generally push that person out my door and, especially if they pushed into my office, I'd physically push them out the door and I'd tell them to piss off. And if they didn't listen, I'd drag them out to the gate and throw them out. But that over here is just not the way that you're supposed to handle that type of situation. The way to handle it ends up in the same result, but without compromising the respect for that older person. And so it's been a real kind of struggle for me to figure out how to do that. And I give this example because it's something that I literally faced last week. And learning how to communicate with people in a way that isn't bringing my own culture into it, in the sense that my culture is better than your culture. Let me show you why you're wrong, sort of a way. And that was really quite hard for me. And then there was the food. I didn't do a solid poo for 3 years, man. It was like my bowels basically were a bladder. It was a mess every night. And the heat also. And in the early days, the power would go off. Now we've got solar and air conditioners. But for the first 14 or 15 years, we didn't have an air conditioner. And the power, as you know, Mark, the power goes off all the time in the cities. In rural India, it can go off for days with no pre-warning. The longest we went was like 6 or 7 days with no power. And you get no pre-warning. It just goes off and stays off. When you have a 48 to 52 degree day and the power's off for 7 or 8 hours and you don't have water because your water system relies on power because you're an Australian, you didn't think things through when you installed the water system, it can be tough. Like now, I'm good. Like now, this is home. I couldn't settle back in Australia. I couldn't handle Australian culture. I love the fact that as a 40-year-old, I walk into a room full of 12-year-olds and they get up to offer me a seat. I think it's beautiful.
I love the way the old people are referred to as an auntie or an uncle as well. It's like an extended family.
Yeah, I hate being called an uncle, though, because I feel like I'm still an older brother. I've crossed that threshold now where, you know, now I've shaved, I'm back to being a brother. No, it's really sweet. And like genuinely, you know, I know that India gets a bit of a bad rap around the world where people talk, they will say things like Indians are unhygienic or there's no road rules or the electrical grid is a nightmare. And maybe if you look at it through the lens of a Western world, some of that is true. But the people here are hygienic. They're beautiful. They're clean. They have far more better quality of the food that they put into their body than the rest of the world with the packaged processed crap that is in the West. And people are so much more conscious of the way that they interact with each other, I think, here than in the West. The only thing that the only real squabble that I have is I just can't get over how easily people throw trash on the ground. The mindset is changing, but it feels like too little too late. But Clive, I would say the Indian government over the last 15 years, maybe even a little more than that, has brought in and is bringing in more civic sense. It's definitely getting better, but it's a slow battle. But they're bringing in municipal facilities for removing the rubbish, because it's all well and good to say throw rubbish in the rubbish bin, but if you're in the city and there's no rubbish bins or no one to collect them, well, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to put an ice cream wrapper in their pocket and walk around all day. It's like that's unreasonable. And so the government is doing a good job of bringing that in and fixing the electrical grid. And as I said, I'm super lucky to get to live where I live, and I really have no complaints now. I have complaints from 2004, but now this is as, I guess, built up and established as anywhere in the world.
Some of the most beautiful places I've ever been are in India.
And so diverse.
As you say, from jungle to mountaintop to desert to grass plains. It's just such a beautiful place.
Tell us a little bit more about the accommodation and the food that you use when you go on your tours.
When you're travelling through the Himalayas, accommodation can be a little limited, but generally speaking, we aim for single accommodation. So everybody gets their own room in a hotel. It's normally just a decent mattress and, blanket. And if you're in somewhere where there's snow, depending on where we're riding, you get a heater. The food is pretty good. I'll occasionally bring along my own cook if I'm at all too concerned, like if clients express that they're concerned about the food being spicy. That's through India. Through Nepal, it's even better. And through Tibet, it's even better than that. I mean, Tibet is 50% five-star accommodation, and it costs the same price as Motel 6 down the road, like unbelievably cheap, the accommodation in Tibet. 99% of people who go on tours with me have never raised any issue with accommodation. It's a beautiful place to explore.
You also do quite a bit of photography and filming as well, don't you? Or are you doing less of that these days?
Actually, today I was just negotiating a 36-day shoot project. I work primarily with Royal Enfield, just out of brand loyalty maybe, or love for the brand, I think. And also it's sort of the same thing with my tours where I'm not looking at making a full-time job out of this. I have a tank bag on my motorcycle. I've taken some foam and using a razor blade, I just cut out an impression of my camera and camera lenses and slide that into the tank bag. And I've got a little semi-crash proof, prang proof, camera bag. I ride my bike and shoot as I go and produce content for Royal Enfield that they use on their social media and website and stuff. And I also do that on my own rides. But these days, what I've actually discovered is there's a new way that I can combine my motorcycle riding and my photography along with my passion for uplifting people. And I've been working a lot with Royal Enfield's social mission. Royal Enfield has a non-profit foundation that they work with UNESCO to go through the Himalayan belt and document and preserve what's called intangible cultural heritage practices. These are things like maybe a style of poetry or a type of carpentry or a type of cooking or maybe some textile styles or the way that people irrigate farms in the high Himalayas or the way that they care for sheep or maybe even the animals that they're caring for, right? And so Royal Enfield, along with UNESCO, sends in teams of riders. They call them rider researchers, and they go into these really remote communities and interact with the people over several days and learn about these cultural practices and then document them. And so I get the amazing chance as a recognised Royal Enfield photographer to go along with them, express my creativity freely without any rigid guidelines or deliverables. I write articles for motorcycle magazines. I produce content for social media for them, for me. More than anything, what I do is I get to explore stuff that you never get to see otherwise, because there's certain roads where I've ridden 50 times and I had no clue that I was riding past the house of the last potter in Ladakh. And then I go and stay with him and learn his ways and walk down to the base of the mountain and collect clay from the side of the mountain with him and walk up to his house and smash the clay and make a pot with him and then help him to deliver that pot to a monastery where it's going to stay for the next, 30, 40, 50 years to burn incense in the monastery on the mountaintop. And Royal Enfield allows me to go on these experiential rides that, like nothing I've ever experienced, is just completely the next level of motorcycling, because A to B is fun, but when you get to hang out in between and you hear the stories and learn how people live in the remotest regions of the world, I think you get an opportunity that really money can't buy. And I get paid to do it, so shit, like that's pretty damn cool. Yeah, so anyone who wants to learn more about my organisation can look for us on Facebook or Instagram, or just Google by typing in Indian Orphanage. So indianorphanage.com, Indian Orphanage on Facebook, and Indian Orphanage on Instagram.
What a guy. What a remarkable life he has led. I really need to get out there and ride with him, hopefully down to Goa, and go and enjoy Motorverse as well. Right, that's it for this week. Oh, sorry. As always, there's at least one more thing. I am joined next week by a certain Noel Tom, who's joining me to chat about our amazing trip to Morocco this year. He's back, but not for long. Raise your visor to the skies above for the trails we ride and the mates we love. Flipping heck, I've been playing with AI. It is a bit scary. Anyway, kids, don't use AI. Learn to play instruments.
Every rider knows. From muddy lanes to the far off lands, the TAMP podcast rides with all its fans. Noel and Clyde with the mics held tight, laughing through breakdowns in the fading light. Gear talk, tall tales in the brewing hand. It's the sound of the UK's adventure band. From festival stages to the rally roar, 14 strong and still rotting more. Film nights, friendships, the whole gang's here. TAMP podcast keeps the spirit clear. So raise your visor to the skies above, for the trails we ride and the mates we love. Hit play, ride on, let the good times last. All praise to the mighty TAMP podcast. Raise your visor to the skies above, for the trails we ride and the mates we love. Hit play, ride on, let the good times last. All praise to the mighty TAMP podcast.
just a final word from one of our newest and dearest sponsors. If you've ever dreamt of riding across the vast desert plains, carving through remote mountain passes, or cresting cathedral dunes, Wilderness Wheels in Morocco makes it real. Based in Ouarzazate, they run fully guided off-road motorcycle adventures across the Sahara and Atlas Mountains. Complete with incredible food, welcoming accommodation and decades of regional knowledge that make every day feel an unforgettable joy. And here's the big one. In March 2027, you can come ride Morocco with Clive, Noel, and possibly the new TAMP podcast co-host. A proper week of sand, stories, and spectacular riding with the TAMP podcast crew. Book your spot at wildernesswheels.com and come find the Morocco you've always been dreaming about. Thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and if you really appreciate what we do, please consider supporting us on either Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are available on our website, tampodcast.com, where you can also go to our store, that's a shop in English, and buy some branded stuff. Please keep listening and, more importantly, spreading the word.